Welcome to Starbase. So it's been almost 2 years since our last update, and a lot has happened since then. By the way, I'm getting like a strange audio feedback. I don't know do I sound okay to you guys? Okay, great. So it's been 2 years since we had our first Mark 1 rocket, and a lot has happened since then. We're going to go through the progress, but I'm just incredibly proud of the SpaceX team and all the support that we received from Cameron County, from Brownsville, from South Padre. I know some of you in the audience, so thank you very much for your support. So before we jump into the details of what's happened over the past 2 years, I think it's worth just talking a bit about this, like why are we doing this? You know, this, I mean, pretty epic, but what's the sort of deep meaning behind this? Like, why build a giant reusable rocket, multi-planetary? And I think this is just an incredibly important thing for the future of life itself. So there's both I call it the sort of the defensive reason or the life insurance reason. That's one part of it, which is that there's always some chance that something could go wrong on Earth. The dinosaurs are not around anymore. You know, there could be some calamity where we do ourselves in, or there's a natural disaster. Now, I'm naturally an optimist, so I think the probability of that is low, but it is not zero. And eventually, the sun will expand. It might take a few 100 million years, so don't hold your breath. But eventually, the sun will expand and destroy all life. So for those who really care about not just the humans, but all the life on Earth, it is very important, essential, that over the long term, that we become a multi-planet species and ultimately even go beyond the solar system and bring life with us. And, you know, we are life's stewards, life's guardians. You know, the creatures that we love they can't build spaceships, but we can, and we can bring them with us. And I think that's pretty important, you know, for those that care about the environment and care about all the creatures on Earth. So that's like I would say like the defensive or the life insurance reason for life collectively. But there's also an inspiring reason, which is that life can't just be about solving problems. There have to be things that inspire you, that move your heart, that make you glad to be, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about the future. And going out there and being a multi-planet species and being a spacefaring civilization and making science fiction, not fiction forever, I think that's one of those things. You know, I think that's what fires me up the most, is like, let's go out there and find out what this universe is all about. You know, are there other species out there? Maybe. You know, hopefully it's. I mean, we want to go find out what the heck's going on. What is going on? I mean, how do we get here? What's the meaning of life? 42. But what's the question? You know, if we go out there and we explore the galaxy, ultimately, then we can find out some of these questions. And it would just be very exciting to do that. And something we can all look forward to. And even, you know, whether somebody chooses to go or not, I think, you know, vicariously we can all go there. Just like with Apollo, where, you know, only a handful of people went to the moon. But in a sense, we all went there. Humanity went there. And so even if somebody doesn't choose to go themselves, I think vicariously through others, they will go, they will understand, they will experience the universe. And I think that's incredibly fundamental to an exciting future. And that's why we're doing this. So. And yeah. Now, one of the rebuttals we'll sometimes hear is like, sure, but what about all the problems on Earth? And I completely agree that the vast majority of resources should be dedicated to solving problems on Earth. Absolutely. I'd say like more than 99% of our resources should be oriented towards solving problems on Earth. So it's important to note that like NASA's annual budget is only 0.36% of the federal budget. And in fact, of the national GDP, it's less than 1/10 of a percentage point. So it's like we're only spending 0.1% of our resources on space. I think that's okay. Like we'll be fine. So just to make sure people don't think like, well, is he suggesting that we just spend everything on space? No, I'm suggesting like maybe 0.5% or something like that. We'll probably be okay. And I think given this establishing security for life itself and having an exciting future and inspiring kids about the future, I think it's worth it, basically. Yeah. So, well, how do we do this? How do we make life multiplanetary? What's the first step? And the essential technology, the holy grail breakthrough that's needed is a rapid and completely reusable rocket system. So this has never been accomplished before. And there's a lot of people for the longest time thought this was not possible. Now with Falcon 9, we've been able to show that you can have reuse of a boost stage and reuse of the fairing. So with Falcon 9, we've demonstrated a lot of reuse of the boost stage and of the fairing. We've have over 100 reflights of the fairing over of the booster, and I'm not sure of the fairing number, but it's a lot. And that's a big step in the right direction. With Starship, we're aiming for full and rapid reusability. So, we obviously need to accomplish that. That's not done yet, but the success is one of the possible outcomes, which I always think is when embarking on an endeavor, success should be at least one of the possible outcomes. And for this design, that is the case. And we're aiming for rapid reusability, which is why the booster is going to take off and then fly back to the launch tower and aspirationally land on the arms, which does sound insane, or as Bill Riley would say, audacious. But if it does come in too fast and shear off the arms, then I guess it will be a farewell to arms. Sorry. There's the dad jokes, I have to warn you, they're only going to get worse. Here I'd really just like to congratulate the SpaceX team and also thank NASA, the FAA, the Space Force, and everyone, and all of our customers that have helped us get to this point. It's insanely hard to get a rocket to orbit. Insanely difficult. I have huge respect for anyone who's gotten a rocket to orbit. It's so hard. And we've had 144 successful launches, 106 landings. Actually, these days I have to look on the internet, say, how many landings have we had? I'll have to ask the internet. 83 flight proven launches. Although I have to say, I still have like launch PTSD every time the rocket takes off. I'm like, I just see all the ways that it could fail. And then this year we're actually aiming to have around 50 launches, so it's about a launch per week on average, and so it's a hell of a year we got ahead of us. In terms of mass to orbit, if you look at like tonnage to orbit, this bar chart that we'll show here really illustrates how profound a rapidly reusable rocket, especially a big one, is, what effect that has on total tonnage to orbit. So the total mass to orbit to date of Earth is around 15,000 tons, maybe 16,000 tons. The mass per Starship, after a year, just 1 year of launching, if it launches 3 times a day, would be equal to all the mass to orbit of Earth to date. That's just one Starship launching 3 times a day for a year. Now, if you have, 10 Starships-ish, then, and we'll have more than that. Our goal is to be making at least a one stack per month, and then ultimately potentially a ship every 3 days. There'll be more ships than there are boosters because the booster actually, even though it's gigantic, will come back in about 6 minutes. Excitement guaranteed. So it only takes about 2 minutes on ascent and then about 4 minutes to return. So you'll know soon. The ship has to complete at least 1 orbit around Earth, and sometimes maybe 3 orbits or more. And each orbit is 90 minutes. So the ship is probably, reusable about every 6 to 8 hours. That's why we say sort of 3 times a day for the ship. But in theory, the booster is capable of being reused every hour. So the propellant pumps are designed to fill the rocket in about half an hour. So this really is designed for rapid reusability. So if you can do roughly a million tons to Earth orbit, that's comfortably over 100,000 tons to the surface of Mars, maybe 150,000 tons, depending on how good the landing system is. So now you can only go to Mars every 2 years. And I think maybe roughly you need about 1 million tons on Mars to have a self-sustaining city. But the critical threshold, I think, for Mars is to have a city that is self-sustaining. It's going to be incredibly difficult to make a self-sustaining city because if it's missing any ingredient at all, however minor that ingredient is, then if the ships from Earth stop coming for any reason, the city will die out. So the critical threshold to pass one of the most important great filters for any species is to have the other planet no longer dependent on the original planet. So I don't know exactly what that tonnage is, but I suspect it is at least, if one tries to get the right order of magnitude, about 1 million tons. Hopefully it's not more than that. Starship is capable of doing that. It's capable of getting 1 million tons to the surface of Mars and creating a self-sustaining city. And I think we should try to do that as soon as we can. The window of opportunity may be open for a long time, and I hope it is, but it may also be open for a short time. And this is the first point in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth that it has been possible. Then, still knocking at the door. I mean, it's a sentient thing. Let's face it. Come in. So, 4.5 billion years. Been a while. This is the first time it's been possible. We need to seize the opportunity and do it as quickly as possible. I mean, to be frank, civilization is feeling a little fragile these days. And like I said, I'm an optimist, but I think we got to protect the downside here and try to build that city on Mars as soon as possible and secure the future of life. And it's going to be an incredibly exciting adventure. Now, the sales pitch for going to Mars is that it's going to be cramped, dangerous, difficult, very hard work. You might die, and that's the sales pitch. I hope you like it. So far from being some sort of escape hatch, it will be extremely difficult and dangerous and tough. Mars is a fixer-upper of a planet, and so it's going to take some work to make it easy to live there. But one day we could make Mars a planet like Earth, and I think we should. So just some facts about Starship, and these numbers will evolve over time. The height of the ship is about 50 meters, 164 feet. The 9 meter or 30 foot diameter. Well, you can just see it basically. It's got about 1,200 tons of propellant on the ship, and thrust is about 1,500 tons. Now these numbers will, we'll probably add more propellant over time, increase thrust. Diameter will stay the same. It's a huge pain to change diameter. So that'll tend to stay the same, but it'll probably get a little bit longer. And we're expecting payload capacity of 100 to 150 tons, depending on which orbit. So to a Starlink orbit, roughly 100 tons. Over time, I think we can probably get the orbit for orbital refilling, the payload to an orbit for orbital refilling to about 200 tons, which is going to be very important for getting to Mars. So for getting to Mars, you also need the orbital refilling. Just like you have aerial refueling, the rockets will need orbital refilling. It's actually mostly oxygen. There's 3.5 tons of oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel. So that's why it's refilling, not refueling. So heat shield. So this is the world's largest heat shield. This is, we actually make this at our little factory in Florida near Cape Canaveral. We call it the bakery. And we're actually using a lot of techniques that are used for roofing tiles. So we need to have a heat shield that is capable of resisting extreme heat, but also is not crazy expensive. And our heat shield team has done amazing work in creating the world's largest heat shield, and one that is reusable, but also robust and low cost. So it's not a crazy money heat shield. And yeah, we need good heat shield technology for entering from orbit. Orbital refilling. We were going to do an animation of this, but it looked a bit wrong. It is a fluid transfer. So, yeah, play a little Barry White, Okay. So that's one of the technologies that is necessary for getting to Mars. So the ship would get to orbit with its payload, and then then in orbit, we'd refill the tanks so it would have enough propellant to get to Mars. Mars is far. So now this is essentially docking in orbit, with Dragon docking with the space station. This is a technology that that SpaceX has become quite good at. We've done, I think at this point, a couple dozen dockings with the space station, and it's actually way harder to dock with the space station than to dock with yourself. So this is, it is a thing we need to solve for Starship, but I'm confident that we can do this because we've done a lot of orbital docking already with the Dragon. But this is going to be an important thing to demonstrate. Won't be necessary in the near term for Starlink launches, but it will be necessary for Mars and the Moon. So let's see, the super heavy booster. So it was 70 meters, but then there was an extra half barrel section that the team deleted, and totally accidentally it's 69 meters. It's also booster 4 and ship 20. I mean, this is a pure coincidence. Those numbers won't leave me alone. It's just, I hope it's good luck. So propellant capacity is like around 3,400 tons. I think it'll probably, it will increase over time, probably get to 36, maybe 3,800 tons. Thrust is around 7,600 tons. That'll probably increase too over time. Just to put this into perspective, though, the Saturn V was 7.5 million pounds of thrust, and Starship is 17. So it's more than twice the thrust of a Saturn V, which was that's the largest rocket ever to get to orbit. It's worth noting Super Heavy is the largest flying object of any kind, or will be. It's very, very big. You can see it right there. That booster has 29 engines. The next booster, we actually increased the engine count to 33. We've kind of bounced around on engine count, because I think at one point we had like 37 engines, and then we went to 29. We finally settled on 33 engines, which is about actually the most number of engines you can actually fit under that booster without like expanding the diameter. And then this tower, this tower from design to construction was 13 months. So it's quite an epic structure. It's really worth emphasizing that the whole launch system, which is basically stage 0, is I'd say as complex and difficult as either the booster or the ship. So I really want to emphasize that this is it's a very difficult thing that requires a lot of hardcore engineering, and it's really, like I said, the tower and the launch system, which I call stage 0, is just as important as stage 1 and stage 2. I mean, this is really some wild stuff here. In fact, I mean, hard to believe it's real, except, it's right there. So, yeah. And then Raptor development. Raptor 1 was 185 tons of thrust. Raptor 2 is 230 tons of thrust, and I think over time we can get that to probably 250 tons. So that's, and it's also significantly simplified. So you can see the difference between V1 and V2. The V2 is, V1 looks like kind of like a Christmas tree spaghetti file. A lot of fiddly bits. And V2 is greatly simplified while also increasing thrust at the same time. So it actually, Raptor 2 costs about half as much as Raptor 1, despite having much more thrust. And I think just generally being a much easier engine to build. and a more robust engine. So very excited about Raptor version 2, and it's only going to get better from here.